These teams have now, we had the Bulls recently did an update on Javonte Green where they essentially said the same thing. We're like, Javonte Green is still alive. He'll be back at some point. Like these non-update updates are getting tiresome.
What is the update on Lonzo Ball?
Getting tiresome. You're worn out by him, Bon Temps. You got a
I would just if you're going to put out an update, like why even bother to put out an update about Karl Towns? It says he's alive and he's going to play someday. Like say he's doing something. Otherwise, we're just wait.
We're kind of bouncing all over the place, but let me just read the.
That's because our host has lost control.
That's true. I've lost control, like a team lost control of their star. Towns this is the official update from the Wolves that came out yesterday. Towns is continuing to progress in his rehabilitation program and has been participating in basketball activities. Okay, that doesn't say anything, but okay. He is expected to return in the coming weeks, and further updates will be made available, or further updates to his playing status will be provided when available.
There ain't that many weeks to come in this season.
I know, but so anyway, LeBron is not close to returning from what I am told. I know that everybody said the 3 weeks, but I think it was very clear 3 weeks is when he's going to get an official reevaluation. Right. It didn't mean he was coming back in 3 weeks. I know that LeBron has played through injuries in the past. I'm not 100% sure if this is an injury you can play through. I remember a couple of years ago when he had that nasty high ankle sprain when Solomon Hill rolled up on him from behind and basically was a wrecking ball to that Lakers season. And he came back for the playoffs and was nowhere near himself. And then basically admitted afterwards that like he shouldn't have been playing, and then completely shut down for the whole summer. And just to get that ankle right. I wouldn't rule out that he couldn't limp back in there for the playoffs like he did there, but he wasn't himself. So I don't know what the Lakers can count on, but I do know that if you know, the difference between one game in and out could be the difference between being 11th and being 6th. I mean, the difference between 11th and 10th, or the difference between being 9th and 6th. That's how tight this is.
Forget 9th and 6th. How about 9th and 8th? And you go from having to win 1 out of 2 games to winning 2 games to get in. Like,
Great point. And so you lose a game to the Rockets. I know it's the second night of a back-to-back. AD doesn't play, but that's really rough. And now McMahon is saying that Luka doesn't look great for Luka for the game on Friday, and AD should be back for that. That now becomes the game you've got to have. I don't care if Kyrie does play. You've got to beat the Mavericks at home without Luka. You just got to.
And again, that there's nothing certain on that. I didn't.
No, I don't want. I know you don't want to get aggregated.
Vibe. Right. I didn't get a real optimistic vibe on him or Kyrie. They're still calling him day to day. So
okay.
I mean, heck, even if they do come back, those guys haven't played in a while. Like, you know, this is what.
Well, they haven't played in a while, and they didn't win a lot when they were both on the floor. Like, let's not act like, hey, all the problems are solved because Luka and Kyrie are back, and they still can't stop anybody. And you know, it
goes back to what Brian's been talking about for a while, right? And that the start of the season, the Lakers put themselves in a hole, and they've been digging out of it ever since. And when you do that, these are the kind of games that they're magnified. If you're Denver and you have a cushion, you can lose some games because it doesn't really matter. But if you're in the middle of this morass at the bottom, every game is magnified, good or bad. And, you know, that's the case when you're losing games you should win, like this game in Houston.
Morass is a hell of a word. That's a good word.
I have some words.
So the Lakers are back. They were tied for 7th like 15 minutes ago. Now they're back as of now, back in 10th. And you know, they have this loss to Houston, which, you know, I don't want to say it was just all their fault. Houston did do some things positive, and you know, they lost that game.
Wendy says through gritted teeth.
They lost that game to the Knicks last Sunday, which, I mean, the Knicks took it. It was a good win for them, but considering the circumstances, I thought the Lakers, they had a chance in that game to
another game. Knicks didn't have Jalen Brunson. Had been second night of a back-to-back, had been struggling. Like, that's a game they needed to win at home.
So, you know, you win both of those. We're talking about basically being in a tie with Golden State for 6th. You just split them. You win one of the two of them, and you're in 7th. And instead they're in 10th. And those types of little things, like, I know that a game in March doesn't count any different than a game in November, but when they have this team that's better. Like they have to cash it in.
Howdy, partners.
And last, but certainly not least,
from Randolph Central School and St. Bonaventure University, Tim Bontemps.
now you can grace the embrace of the Garden crowd.
Oh man, that was a surprise.
So
Man.
Mike Walczewski, as I've said before, legendary Knicks PA announcer, legendarily good dude, is a fan of the pod. And Jackson had the idea of having him do intros for us. So I asked him a couple weeks ago, and he immediately said he'd be very happy to do that. And in typical New York style, he took some liberties and had some fun, particularly with McMahon's. And we have a couple other things during the show that he did for us too that we'll have later on. But Mike is the best. So
thank you very much, Mike. It was
awesome.
truly a surprise for me. I noticed McMahon that Bontemps might have had a say here because he arranged for himself to be introduced last, like he was Michael Jordan.
No, yeah. I didn't do that.
I question that. Also, I think we have the Hoop Collective record for the fastest Bontemps interruption.
Well, see, Jackson,
we never thought would get broken.
When Jackson and I were talking about how we're going to set this up, Jackson's like, I'll say something. I said, no, I'll say something. So then these guys will get annoyed at me for interrupting before they get the surprise. So
Bontemps just interrupted my little discussion about his interruption.
So there you go.
This one was a worthy interruption. I'll give you that, Bontemps.
He just didn't want me to have the record for the earliest interruption. That's really what it was.
Right. Yeah. Well, Bontemps doesn't even believe in pardoning his interruption. He just interrupts. He doesn't even worry about that.
It's true.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike. I don't know. I'm hoping to go to the Garden this weekend. I'll go to the Garden this weekend if Kent State wins tomorrow night tonight, Friday night in Albany. I'm going to McMahon. I'm going to New York tomorrow, and Bontemps is going to drive me up. Right, Friday. Bontemps is going to drive me up to Albany, and we're going to watch Drake play University of Miami, where I'm going to root for Drake. Okay.
He's a hell of a rapper.
Yep. Love him. And then if Kent wins, I'm packing for 3 days, but I have a flight home on Saturday. So I'm being responsible. But if the Flashes upset the Hoosiers, which I was there in 2001 in San Diego when, as a 13 seed, Kent State upset number 4 seed in Indiana. I've seen it before. I'm going to go on Saturday for the Nuggets at the Garden, playing at the Knicks on Saturday afternoon. And I'm not. I obviously want to go to that game because it would have meant that Kent State would have won. And my guy, Rob Senderoff, Kent State's head coach, would have celebrated his first NCAA tournament victory.
Oh, I thought you wanted to go to the
coach.
game because you never get to watch the Nuggets play.
That's true. I don't even know what Nikola Jokic looks like. It'll be great to see him for the first time. But I also kind of want to check in on the Nuggets, who are now they are playing at Detroit on Thursday night. So I don't know if their losing streak will be over. They are in the midst of a 5-game road trip, which has not started out well. They lost in Toronto earlier this week, where the Raptors put up 125 on them, and I felt like they could have maybe put up 140. The thing about the Nuggets, their defense was kind of middle of the pack. I think when I wrote about them about a week ago or so about their superior clutch play, I looked up all their defensive numbers, and they ranked 12th at the time. That's not great, but it's pretty good. And also, when you get into defensive rankings, the difference between the team in 8th place and the team in 15th is usually negligible. It's sort of like, are you at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom, basically? And the Nuggets are in the middle. Historically, that doesn't necessarily bode well for a long playoff run. Typically, the teams that make the finals are the best defensive teams. Last year, for example, the Warriors and Celtics were the top 2 of the top defensive teams in the league. But their defense has fallen off a cliff. And look, they had a cushion. I think they were up at one point on the Grizzlies by 7 games in the loss column. So it's not the end of the world. Teams lose on the road. But Bontemps, 4-game losing streak heading into this game in Detroit, which I would hope they would win, but I don't know. Their defense has totally fallen off the cliff. They've given up over 120 points, 3 consecutive games. And I think more interestingly, with Joel Embiid dominating nightly, had another great performance on Wednesday night in Cleveland in a win there. Jokic's MVP status may have been shaky, and the Nuggets status as contender is being questioned a little bit right now.
Yeah, I mean, we have a story leading our website right now that in Vegas, the odds have basically flipped, and Embiid is now an even money favorite to be MVP of the league. We'll see what happens in the next straw poll in a couple of weeks. We'll also see what happens when Denver hosts Milwaukee on Saturday the 25th, and then Philly on Monday the 27th, 2 games I'll be at. We'll see how those games go. Joel will be the first to tell you that he thinks he didn't win MVP last season because Philly lost to Denver and Milwaukee late in the regular season in either back-to-back games or games
I don't think that's
shortly
true.
after each other. I'm
I
not
don't
saying
think
it's
that's
true. I'm not saying it's necessarily true either, but that's his belief personally. And, he's going to get a chance in a marquee national TV game, not up against the NCAA tournament, to go head to head with Jokic. And if he has a game like he did in January and they win on the road in Denver, he's going to give himself a real shot to win the MVP award. He's waited a couple of years to win. And to your point about the Nuggets, this stretch, yes, they have a cushion. They were way ahead. They're now, I think, 3 games ahead of Memphis, 3 or 4 games ahead of Memphis in the loss column in the Western Conference. But if you look at the issues they've had, in particular on the defensive end of the court, we've talked about it a bunch on the pod throughout the year. That's really the place where you look at this team and you wonder, when they get in a playoff series and people are attacking Nikola Jokic over and over and over again, how are they going to hold up? And the fact that they're giving up 49 points in the first quarter to a Toronto Raptors team that can't score on anyone and is struggling to score all the time, that just tells you that they're not in a very good place right now. And it just reinforces what we've talked about before on the pod, which is that in these playoffs in the West, with how bad the West is this year, there are no excuses for Denver. And if they can't get through the West this year, you have to question if this team's ever going to be able to do it. And you have to question what a team with Nikola Jokic's ceiling is as a real championship contending team.
Yeah, I don't want to overreact to a bad stretch in March for a team that's basically locked up the number 1 seed, but it's not like they don't have anything to play for. Like, if you get to the finals, you don't want to be able to have home court advantage in that series. Like, that's out there. Michael Malone, obviously exasperated, talking about, I'm going to find some guys that are ready to fight with me because right now we're just in chill mode. We'll see how they respond to that. But I definitely think that the commanding lead that Nikola Jokic had in this MVP race has disappeared. And look, this guy's had 37-point triple doubles in games that they've lost during this streak, which is fine. But I do go back to, he has to convincingly win the MVP to get a 3rd straight MVP, given the historical context of that, the lack of playoff success, this thing that Bucks fans keep bitching about that I said a few years ago. It still applies, but for 2/3 of the season, I just couldn't come up with any justification to. And I don't even have a damn vote, first of all, so shut up. But I couldn't.
You might get one this year. This might be the year.
No, I had one year, and apparently they thought my ballot sucked because they didn't give me one since then. Anyways, he has to win in convincing fashion. And when Mike Malone earlier this year said, if your only reason not to give him the MVP is because you don't want to give him a 3rd straight, you need to find another reason. Well, we're finding other reasons. And it's not just the Nuggets fading. It's the fact that Embiid has been unbelievable. Giannis and the Bucks have been, the best team in the league throughout the course of the season. Giannis is putting up bonkers numbers. But I do think, look, the tie goes to the guy who has been right there in the race the last couple of years and doesn't have one. And Embiid, I do think the fact that he dominated and in the head-to-head matchup, Jackson just posted the numbers in the chat here: 47, 18, and 5. Jokic had 24.
Blocks, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just a dominant performance. If he has another dominant performance and they're able to beat the Nuggets, I think that you have to consider him the clear front runner at that point. And honestly, it might get to a point where you're like, is it Embiid or Giannis, and Jokic could be third, which the analytics argument's always going to be for Jokic. But if it was just as simple as that, then we wouldn't need MVP voters, because you could just punch numbers into a computer and spit out the winner every year.
Yeah, to your point, McMahon, what have we talked about since the start of the season, right? People are going to be looking for a reason not to give Nikola Jokic a third MVP award. And
Which
like you
isn't
said,
fair.
Well, but it's also just the reality of the situation. When there's a reason people haven't won 3 in a row, when Jordan won 2 in a row, LeBron won 2 in a row, Steph won 2 in a row, Giannis won 2 in a row. All these guys didn't win a third in a row for some reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
People at some point were looking for reasons to vote for other people. Well, again, whether it's fair or not is irrelevant. That's just the nature of how this goes. So, as McMahon correctly said, he was going to have to win in convincing fashion. What the last couple of weeks have done is removed the convincing fashion, and they've turned it into a toss-up, and he's not going to win a toss-up. So he's going to have to win, in my opinion, a convincing race at the end. Now, if they play Milwaukee and Philly and he has triple doubles and they win both games and he plays great, that could be enough to push it over the line. But from where this was a month ago, the reaction I had when Jokic had such a big lead in the second straw poll was that it was going to snap back, because the only comment I heard about that poll was, I can't believe Jokic had that many first place votes. People thought he'd be in first. People didn't think he'd be that far ahead. And so I thought there was going to be some snapping back. And then would you combine it with the way Denver has played after the All-Star break, which is terrible. You combine it with the fact that since this January 1st, the Bucks are 22-2 when Giannis plays. When you combine it with the fact that Embiid is leading the league in scoring for the second year in a row, shooting like 57% from the field and dominating on a nightly basis, this thing has come right down to it. And it's, to me, a wide open 3-horse race with 25 days left in the season.
Let me ask you this.
I was going to say, our guy Spears has De'Aaron Fox.
Well, De'Aaron Fox has got another award locked up and sewn up beyond recognition. So
Spears they just installed a beam at his house.
Spears, when he submits his ballot, he's going to submit it on purple colored paper. Just in a purple
Spears
envelope.
gets to do every victory lap he wants after making that prediction. He was on a limb by himself, and he was right.
He's got Fox, Sabonis, Barnes.
He's got Keegan Murray, Rookie of the Year.
They're going to get Mike Brown as Coach of the Year and De'Aaron Fox for the new Clutch Player of the Year. So they'll get a couple awards for sure.
And we'll get back on track real quick, but Fox All-NBA absolutely has a case, as does Sabonis. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program.
The game winner that Fox hit on Wednesday night was very impressive. It almost looked like it was out of rhythm.
It was effing nice, as he said.
That was a great line. That was a great line by him.
Yeah. Anyway, 2 things I want to say about this MVP. Before this 4-game losing streak, which again might be over by the time this pod comes out, the Nuggets had won 8 out of 9. They've hit a bump when Giannis and Embiid also are playing their best basketball. Secondly, I voted for Giannis in the second straw poll. And while you guys know how I feel about Embiid, I voted for him last year. I wanted to vote for him 2 years ago.
We also know how you feel about Joker, but go on.
You don't. I'm not taking that.
I'm just saying, go. Keep talking.
When you vote for a guy for MVP, how can you feel? You have to feel great about it.
Yeah. Self-loathing.
You guys know how I feel about Embiid. Why should I change my vote at this point? I had Giannis for a reason, and he's only getting stronger in my eyes. So, I'm recognizing what Joel's doing. I'm watching it. Mm-hmm. I watched almost the entire Cavs Sixers game, and Evan Mobley, he had to start because Jared Allen is out with an eye injury for the Cavs, and Evan Mobley worked really, really hard in that game, and he couldn't contain the bull. He
No.
just, like,
Listen,
no prayer.
there-
He had no prayer of doing it.
No, the prayer was that they would not reverse his sixth foul with 4 minutes and change left, which I saw JB Bickerstaff was not real pleased with that review. That was the only prayer. Like get him beat off the floor. Too big, too strong.
that's exactly
too
right.
skilled.
That was their only prayer, was to get him disqualified. It was a controversial call if you saw it.
I mean, it was a
Embiid-
charge. He put his shoulder in the guy's chest.
I thought it was a flop. That
It was both.
well,
Yeah.
yeah. Look, I was fine with an overturn. I would have been fine with it staying. I thought it was a borderline call.
I was
Embiid didn't really
surprised-
put his arm out very much at all. Evan Mobley was certainly very ready to go flying into the stanchion to get the sixth foul.
I will say this: if Embiid puts his shoulder in your chest, you're going to go flying in the stanchion too, whether you're
Oh,
flopping or not.
I'd go out of the
And-
damn building if he
well,
did it to me.
and Mobley, hell of a player, not exactly a brick wall physique there.
No.
Well, and
But
it's the same reason why Jared Allen has always gotten killed whenever he's played
Mhm.
against Embiid. Jared Allen's a great player. He does not have the size to contain Joel Embiid and gets run over just about every time they play.
well, everybody
I was
gets
going to
killed
say
by Embiid.
the people who
Well-
do have the size don't have the mobility, right?
The guy's leading the league in scoring.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
right. I'm just saying, Jared Allen in particular has been on the short end of that matchup a bunch, because
That's
especially
true.
because they've been in the same division for a while and had to play many, many times.
Yeah,
That's
and the
true.
scoring race is. I'm not saying it's over, but it's a half-point lead. We'll see. I don't know when Luke is coming back. I think Embiid's at this point, we can say a half-point lead with however many games it is to go, whatever, 15, 17, whatever it is. That's a pretty comfortable lead.
McMahon,
Yeah,
by the
you're-
way, if Brian votes for Giannis, he's going to have less games played, most likely, than Embiid.
Well,
About
listen,
that?
we know
About
Wendy.
that?
Hey, we know Wendy. He loves some load managing, baby. Loves it.
yeah. Well, it's not load managing. It's, oh my God, the guy sprained his ankle, so everything he did for the last 4 months is ruled invalid. By the way, you were McMahon. You're in San Antonio. The Mavericks were there last night. No Kyrie, no Luca again, although they handled the mighty Spurs.
Oh boy. Listen, you probably didn't watch the last couple minutes or the last minute of regulation.
I didn't watch a minute.
Okay.
so-
Thank God for you, because my eyeballs are aching. This was
It was
You not-
truly
oh,
awful.
dude. This was the worst G League game I've ever watched in my entire life. It was just a total debacle.
Excuse me, sir. St. Vincent St. Mary's own Malachi Branham had 20 points in that game. So
I didn't realize that he was one of yours. Okay, my bad.
Oh yes. I mean, we send guys to the NBA. What do you want?
Well, usually your NBA players you're pumping up when they're freshmen in high school. So I didn't, I hadn't heard a lot about him from you.
St. Vincent St. Mary's current star is headed to Kent State next year.
Okay,
so...
you've slipped over the last 25 years.
Anyway, I don't know if there was an update on when Luca and Kyrie might actually play.
So they're practicing today in LA. We'll see. But Kyrie, we talked to him after shoot around. He basically said, this is going to take longer than I thought.
No. He had a great quote this week when he was talking about his sore foot. He said, how did he exactly say it?
Hold on, let me.
I
I don't want to misquote. I don't want to misquote. So let me.
Yeah,
okay.
Bontemps, you know that he's on Kyrie's good side, so he wants
Certainly
to make
is.
sure everything.
Got to make
is
sure
in
it's all
context.
buttoned up.
Listen, I'm just an accurate reporter. That's all. You know me. I've never been one to.
While McMahon's looking this up, just an absolutely abysmal loss for the Lakers in
Oh, my.
Houston Wednesday, setting up this game. No Anthony
Speaking of-
Davis.
speaking of
to the
load management.
Rockets.
Okay, here's the quote that I think that I don't know. There's a couple ones. The one I think that you're referring to is when he said, "I just want to take precautionary," and he meant measures. I just want to take precautionary measures at this point in the season. I make my whole entire living with my feet, so I'd rather take care of it now than when I'm 40 years old. Or you might be referring to, we'd love to be out there, including myself.
No, I was like, he was like, it's important. I make my living with my feet.
Yes.
Yeah, every NBA player makes their living with their feet. It's
Yeah.
important. For
Feet are pretty important for everybody.
So
here.
they're hoping, and by the time this comes out, there'll be more news. They're hoping those guys are both able to practice today in LA. I was told by one person that they weren't real optimistic about having them Friday against the Lakers, which is a big game, but we shall see. Luka apparently did a 2-a-day on Tuesday and was pretty sore the next day. So with that thigh. So we'll see how things develop. But I mean, dude, they had to
Luka, his thighs are his living.
Yes, very much so. I did have an exclusive with Luka after shoot around. I said, "Hey, Luka, how you doing?" He said, "Good." And you? I said, "Good. How's the thigh?" He said, "Good." So
and you?
He didn't care about my thigh. You can only get that kind of reporting right here on the Hoop Collective.
He cared about your thigh as much as John Wall cared about your back when he ran you over.
Yes.
Yeah, the Lakers on Wednesday night, Anthony Davis was out. He was declared out before the game. Look, I don't know whose decision it was. I that's one thing that happens when players are ruled out for load management. Sometimes it's the team saying we're taking it out of your hands. And I think, not to put words in Darvin Ham's mouth, but I think the reality, they're worried about Anthony Davis's foot. And if he goes too hard on the foot and it hurts the foot, then this whole thing is off.
Yeah. I mean, Darvin said after the game, they won Tuesday, and he said, I believe he called it an active injury still. Said he's not playing with something that's bothering him, but that they are being precautionary with it. And they don't want to have him play in back-to-backs, which you can understand. You also would like to think that with the vaunted new supporting cast that a certain co-host of ours, McMahon, went on and on about earlier in the week about how great it was.
By the way,
I think they'd be able to go win against the Houston Rockets in a game, but
can I just note something real quick? Wendy ain't the co-host. We are guests. We are regular guests on Wendy's pod.
You're so something more than a guest.
But... Check yourself, Bontemps. You ain't all that.
Fair enough. One of the other person on the pod with us today about that.
What I said was they have a top 6 roster in the Western Conference.
Well, they don't, A, and B, if they did, they would have won the game yesterday, but they don't. So that's right.
It wasn't Austin Reeves' fault. Austin Reeves if Austin Reeves was playing for the Kings, Spears would be calling for him to make All NBA. That's how good he's been playing recently.
He is. It's Kevin Huerter.
But yeah, they, the thing about D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley is that they are high variance players. Beasley couldn't miss on Tuesday, and he couldn't hit anything on Wednesday, and that is who Malik Beasley is.
Yeah,
and that is who D'Angelo Russell is. So if you don't have the stability of having Anthony Davis or LeBron in the lineup, and you're relying on those two guys, you're going to have egg on your face. By the way, the Rockets are also playing better.
Oh, I was going to say, can Wendy get some Rockets praise? Well, those ears are perking up down there in Clutch City.
No, they definitely have been playing better. Jabari Smith Jr. has been playing better. He wasn't great on Wednesday. He's been very good recently. Exactly what you'd want to see from a rookie, improving down the stretch. They got Şengün back for this game, which was a big factor because
beat the
he's
Celtics
a quality
the
player.
other day.
And yeah, look, I mean, again, Kevin Porter and Jalen Green are high variance players. And in this particular game, Kevin Porter, he had a very, very strange flagrant foul in the final second of the game, which I can't quite explain what happened there. But he had a very, very good game. He went 11 of 16 shooting. But from what I've heard on LeBron is that he is not close. That was what I was told, not close. Does that mean